And then there were three. Welcome to Playing the Field, the Bachelor podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Field, a sports anchor here at Channel 7 in New York City, but also a longtime Bachelor fan. And joined now, as always, by my good friends Jen Matarese, who's joining us live via Zoom. And if you listen to this entire podcast, you get a free set of steak knives because Jen has her telemarketing headset on. We are happy about that. Gina Sirico, our pal from KABC in Los Angeles, who specializes on the red carpet. Gina is here as well. What's going on, ladies? We missed you. I missed you while I was gone. I was in Scotland on a little birthday trip. The good news is I finally found Austin. He had been lost in the New Zealand wilderness after wandering away from Jen that one episode up the hill. I found him in Scotland at a castle. It was the craziest thing.
It's wild. I'm so surprised that that's where he ended up.
That's where he ended up. One of life's great mysteries has finally been solved. So we can rest easy knowing that. And listen, there's a lot to talk about with this most recent episode that we just saw. Hometowns were here. I know all of us were looking forward to this for a variety of reasons. And it started out with Devin in his hometown of Houston, Texas. And they meet the Runners Club, and I thought that was a really cool way to not only kind of ingratiate Jen with his friends, but it also kind of eases the nerves, eases the tension a little bit, because I think we can all agree that Devin was a little nervous about her meeting his family, and for obvious reasons. So I think this was a good icebreaker, Jen, right off the top, having Jen, the Bachelorette, meet all of his friends in the Run Club.
I loved the shirts. I thought the shirts
those are great.
So adorable. The Jen and Devin love run. And then it was like, I couldn't tell if he just wanted to stop and kiss her or if the producers were like, as you're running, make sure you make moments to like have some romantic time, or if he was just making those moments as Devin likes to do. So either way, it was really, really cute. And I especially loved when he called his dog over, Charlie, and they got to meet. I thought that was very sweet.
Yeah, it was all very sweet. I love that at one point she was like, is love a marathon? Is it a sprint? Is it just a run? And it was just very cute. And his nerves were kind of adorable. I think there's so much riding on this. He's putting so much into this because it's something that he wants so badly, to kind of, like he kept saying it, to kind of like right the wrongs of things that have happened in his own, past and his family and all of that. And so, it was sweet to see that he was nervous.
And I think this is just another example of Jen's personality shining through, not only in that moment you mentioned about his love of sprints. Is it a marathon?
It's a relay.
It's a relay. That was a great answer. And she's very witty, very charming, and she's such a calming influence for these guys when, in a lot of respects, and I'm sure you ladies can relate, if you're going to meet your boyfriend's family, I mean, she had to be really nervous too, but she never showed it. And I thought that was another feather in her cap. And then they get to the doorstep at his house, and Devin's like, listen, I'm going to need to lean on you here because I'm so nervous how this is going to go. And again, Jen, that's where Jen says, you can lean on me all you want. And she went in there into his living room to meet his family. And I thought she just really shined throughout that entire situation.
I just loved his family. I thought that they all had the best time together. I know he's got, his parents aren't together anymore, but they all seem to get along. They obviously care about him a whole lot. And I really loved all the things that his dad had to say to him. I know that he struggles with this relationship with his father. He was sort of in and out of his life a bit. But at the end of the day, it seems like they've all kind of come to this place where his mom's remarried, his dad is happy. They just want to see their sons be happy. So I think that was really refreshing and nice probably for Jen to see too.
Yeah, I thought so too. I also loved the grandmother. Like when
she was great.
She walked in the door and she was just like hugging him and going, "Oh, I just love you." I was like, "Oh, that's
good old Phyllis."
So sweet, right? Exactly. It is funny. Like he has said, and it's something that they both bonded over, the fact that the relationships in their families early on in life were not, what you would call normal or conventional. And I think it's something that they are both looking for. And so to see, them kind of like work through it as they're talking to the family, like I thought it was interesting to watch. as it was going.
And Gina, isn't that something they can bond over too, knowing that they both kind of come from similar family backgrounds where it wasn't, as you say, a normal family dynamic?
I think they both do bond over that. I think, they both have very strong relationships with their moms, and it's the person that they look up to, both of them the most. By the way, Devin's mom, Jennifer.
Coincidence?
I mean, just saying. But I do think that, they do have that similarity, and it is something that they can both draw from. Like, they both understand each other in that way, where it's like, my mom was the rock. My mom helped me. And, she, like for Devin now, she has found her love, and that's key to him. And he wants that. And it's the same thing for Jen and her mom. If you watch, even if you remember in the first episode, her mom was just like, I just want you to be happy. I want you to, I want you to thrive. And they both really just understand that. And, it's sweet to see.
It's really sweet to see. And it was really sweet to see how this date ended when Devin basically says, listen, Jen, I'm falling so hard for you. I want you to know that, or I need you to know that. And she's like, oh, Devin loves me. And then she says, I'm falling so hard for you. And, at that point, I think that told us all we need to know, Jen, about where they are with their feelings. And this is really the first time we've heard Jen. I mean, she's kind of dropped tiny hints before and maybe subtly said things, but this was about as black and white as it can get in terms of how she feels for Devin.
Yeah, she almost seemed like she wanted to just flat out say, I love you too.
Yeah, no, it did feel like that.
I think she's definitely holding back. And I think we saw that again, even with maybe Marcus, like that she seemed to want to share so much of her feelings. But she is being cautious. I think she kind of knows how this goes. People have doubts. People sometimes change their minds. She wants to be sure that these guys are in 100%. But he said, I love you, Jen. That? I mean, it doesn't get more clear than that. And his mom urged him to just go all in, which I thought was so important. And I thought we saw that a lot in these hometown dates where the moms were like, what are you waiting for? You're in it this far. If you want this girl, you have to say the way you feel. And if you don't, you're going to lose.
Gina, were you thinking like before we knew about any of the other three dates that followed, to borrow a sports term, the leader in the clubhouse, were you thinking that Devin was the leader in the clubhouse based on how this date went?
I always wonder. Yeah, I mean, definitely. When she was leaving, she was talking about how giddy she was. And that, like, you can see it, how she feels when she's around him. And, like, you definitely feel that. I always wondered, too, and I know it's because they never, show them in the order that they were.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you.
I wonder what the,
order is.
And why they had him first and all of that. So it's always interesting. But, yeah, when you see them together, you kind of can't deny their chemistry.
And then, speaking of interesting, we go to Jeremy's hometown of Fairfield, Connecticut, right here in the Northeast. And they go, of all places, and I know, Jen, you were loving this, they go to Stu Leonard's for the date. And I thought that was very creative on his part and just another way for them to be their goofy, laughy selves, which was kind of similar to them being in the public market in Seattle. It kind of had that same vibe to that date.
Yeah, he said he even wanted it to be kind of a callback to the previous dates because he thought, I mean, I guess if you think things are going so well, why break it? Why if it's not broken, don't fix it.
Right.
And so he thought, okay, well, we'll go back to a grocery store. We'll go shopping again. And they even had that callback to that same joke that they keep doing. Oh, did you bring me here to kill me?
And I thought that was
so
good.
I thought that was Jen again showing her personality because I think he said that twice in their last date.
Yes.
And then she goes ahead. But it was almost like he didn't even pick up on the reference because he didn't laugh. I think he was so nervous, but it kind of went right over his head. But as soon as she said it, I said, okay, Gina, okay, that's pretty good.
Yeah, no, the minute she said it, I was like, yeah, Jen, that's my girl. Like they play off of each other so well. Their humor, you could see it throughout the whole date and the whole time when they're in there, in the store, that they just they have so much fun together. And, and that is so key but also you get where she's coming from. Where is there more? Is he holding back? And is it like, is everyone hiding behind, just the fun of it? The funniest moment I thought was when his aunt, they were like eating lobster or something, and his aunt walks in the room behind him.
Yeah, right.
Wait, what?
Exactly.
That was random?
Was that random? We'll never know for sure, but I believe
think
it
might
was.
have been,
Yeah, I
actually,
think it was
'cause
very
she wasn't one of the
organic.
ones who showed up at the house later. It was
Right.
just very random,
Yeah, and I guess Jen, when you're looking at their like laughy, flirty relationship, both in the Seattle market and then in Stu Leonard's, it's like you're thinking, okay, these two have a ton of fun together, but then they go to meet his parents and his family and stuff, and his mom basically says that he doesn't think that Jen is Jeremy's type, but they're here nonetheless. And I feel like when she got into the living room and started talking to the family, I felt like the whole thing just was a little awkward.
Jeremy and Jen, they were cute together, but when she was named the Bachelorette, she described what she looks for in a guy, and that is not Jeremy. So tell me, where are you at with everything?
I'm very happy. Like, I've never had so much fun with one person.
So you've had fun together. Have you talked about anything else seriously? Like, do you feel that you know her well enough? Because this is such a commitment. And she seems like a nice girl, but
You barely got to
just
talk
met
to her. Yeah.
So I'm skeptical just because I don't know that they really discuss the road ahead.
Yeah, I think that she heard a little bit too much of that from his family. Like, he might not be ready. Maybe he's not there yet, and we'll have to see how things go. And I think at this point it's just too far in, and she would have to have some off the charts chemistry, like Sam M chemistry with him, I think, to be able to pull that off to get to the next level. And I don't know if they had that. They did have some chemistry, obviously, but I just don't think it was enough, and I don't think his feelings are far enough, and I don't think hers were either. Because if they were, she might have been able to like wait it out. But
yeah, and
there's too many other guys.
He even said at the end,
certain.
Yeah, he even said at the end, "I'm falling for you. I love being with you genuinely," and she didn't say it back to him, Gina. And I guess maybe if Jeremy said, "I'm just going to keep the main thing," maybe Jen would have been head over heels for Jeremy, and we might have found him in the top 3.
No main things. The main thing is done until men tell all, hopefully. And then, main thing is done. Jeremy, on the other hand, I think, it's funny when he was telling his family about how his entrance into the mansion. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe he's telling me.
Oh, yeah. And then used the same verbiage and everything.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, oh, dude. But the thing is, after that, what we saw was a more reserved Jeremy.
Yeah.
And so that, I think, is the impression that everyone has gotten. And, there may be we've all thought, yeah, okay, wait a minute. He's a good guy. And there are those moments that they have together that are very sweet and very fun. And she does make him feel he does make her feel very comfortable and all of that. But is it love? And that was always the question. Yeah, they have an ease about them, but is it love? And, I think that's something that the family picked up on as well. I mean, the mom said, I'm skeptical more times than I want to count. And then even like when Jen was talking to the mom, she said, do you see him? Like, do you see him as being ready for this? Like ready for an engagement? And she was like, well, I just met you. So I don't know. I don't know what you guys are like together. So that to me, I was like, ooh, that's interesting. I felt bad for him and for Jen in this because I think maybe she wanted it to be a little bit less, I'm trying to think of the word, like the right word, but like, I feel like she wanted a little bit more clarity.
Yeah, of course.
Where everybody else was using. She wanted a little bit more clarity. And I think that his family made it not so clear.
And Jen, how tough is that, though, for the family? Because let's be honest, I mean, this is not real life. I mean, you've met someone for 3 weeks and then you're talking about engagement. So the family knows that Jeremy is on a reality dating show, but now it's about to get real, so to speak, from this reality dating show. And it's like you're trying to walk that fine line, right? I mean, you're a mom. I mean, how do you walk that fine line if somebody comes in and is like, I want to marry your son or daughter 3 weeks into meeting them, but you also know that this is a reality show?
I think, like you said, it's a reality show, but you just entered real life. They're at your house. You're serving them a meal. They're sitting down. You're trying to get to know them. And I think you're just looking for those visual cues. Like, are they at ease together? Are they happy together? Are they laughing? How do they seem together? Like, what's the vibe going on? And I think they noticed that things just were not fully developed. I mean, I don't even think they were off. I just think they weren't there yet. Like, they were just not at a place where it's like a love at first sight, let's run off and get married together. And that's kind of what this show is in a way, like an extended version of that.
Yeah.
So I don't know.
I think in the real world, if they would have met and they would have been dating, they could go the distance because they have this ease and they could build, but they don't have that kind of time, in this particular situation. And even I think it was the mom, again, who said, like, this isn't a game. And so they understand the concept and they're like, I don't know. I wasn't so sure about it. Like, they even said, they were like, I think when she came out and was announced as the Bachelor, she was like, I don't think Jeremy's her type.
Yeah, right.
Which was interesting. But then also, like, look, opposites attract all the time, right? But again, in this situation, I guess the way it was, it just didn't quite seem to be right between the two of them.
And we saw that.
I wonder what it was they thought wasn't right, though. Like, what was it about his personality or his looks or whatever? I don't remember what Jen just said that would not fit him.
Is it possible that religion played a role in this? I mean, it's a very strong Jewish family, and she is not Jewish. I'm not trying to make assumptions here, Gina, but I feel like, knowing what his family is and their background, that maybe that was kind of the elephant in the room here, and that could have played a role in their what their thought process was when it came to Jen.
Perhaps, but also, he said in their date when they had that one-on-one, I'm pretty sure he said it's not like I have to marry somebody who is also Jewish.
No, but that's him saying that and not his family.
Yeah, right. No, I know. But again, ultimately, it's his decisions, right?
Sure.
These are all his, his decisions when it comes to who he's going to date. I do feel like, maybe it did, but I think that it was less about that and more about the process for them.
Yeah.
This process is not for everybody, as we all know. And so for them, it may just not seem like the right way to find a spouse.
Yeah. And that proved to be the case in the end. Listen, this is a game. And speaking of games, they go to Jonathon's hometown of San Diego, California.
And I will be meeting Jonathon's family today. Oh my God.
This is Jen.
Hello. Hi, Jen. It's nice to meet you. How are you feeling? Tell us everything.
There has been a lot that has happened.
He ate a grape after we stomped our feet in it. That was when I knew.
I feel like they're a good match. They look happy together.
Hi. How are you?
But the last serious relationship you had, it went from happy, healthy to like toxic at the very end, and I'm just protective. Do you feel like you're falling for any of the other guys?
Yeah, I have very strong relationships here.
I can't help myself. I'm just feeling very, I want to be protective of John.
I 100% get it. Jonathon's brother gets emotional with me, and I can only hope that they see what I see between the two of us.
Jen, they play some lacrosse, hearkening back to one of their one-on-one dates from earlier in the season. And what did you make of her date with Jonathon? I'll be honest, when they were down to the final four before the hometown dates even happened, I thought it was going to be Jonathon going home because I thought she had less of a connection with him compared to the other three. Turns out I was wrong. Surprise, surprise. But did you feel their connection get stronger during this hometown date?
I think it did. And she's definitely thinking about the future and thinking like, oh, well, we're playing lacrosse and this is something I could see us doing with our future children. I mean, she wouldn't be saying things like that or thinking those things if she wasn't considering him for the long haul. So I really liked their date. I was concerned that they showed so little of it. I thought that he probably got the least amount of before family time, like the actual date part. But so I thought, oh, maybe he's the one that's going to go home because we're not seeing as much of it. But that wasn't the case. And she seemed to really have such a good time playing around with him and getting to know him on the lacrosse field.
Yeah, and Gina, do we think because his brother Zach had like a fast relationship, which they talked, which was kind of like expedited into marriage, which they talked about at the very beginning of the episode, that was like the clip they showed at the very beginning. Do we think that helped Jonathon's case in when it came to his family in terms of getting that approval with Jen?
It's possible. But I think it's also possible that, they saw them together, when you see them together and you see, again, the ease and the comfort that, they have with each other. Like, I think it was his mom who said basically, like, I love the fact that she didn't talk to me about your looks. She talked about who you were. She talked about, the way you talk to each other, the way you communicate. Those are like the key things. And so I think they see that this isn't just a surface thing. So I think that also helped the situation. Like, yes, they understand the rapid pace of a relationship, but they also see that she's like, oh yeah, they kind of get each other.
And we saw at the end of the date, he says, I'm falling for you. Jen says, I'm also falling for you. So now that's 2 of the 3 men that she says she is falling for, which takes us to Marcus. They go to his hometown of Tacoma, Washington. They go for a walk. And, of course, he has such a special relationship, Jen, with his little sister, Gabriella. So we knew that was going to be a key point in this. And Jen even tears up during that conversation with his little sister. I think some of that is both her emotions and also knowing how much Gabriella means to Marcus.
I was just taken by like what a great group of family and friends he had. Like,
yeah.
He had a sister, and then he had people that he met when he's an Army Ranger, right? So that he developed these relationships with, and everyone just came out for him. And I guess I didn't realize he actually had gotten adopted at some point, because he said his adopted family, his parents, would not be on the show. So I guess either it just wasn't for them or they didn't want to do this. I'm not really sure, but I wonder if that'll come into play where she's going to feel kind of bummed she didn't get to meet them, unless that happened off camera and we don't know about it, but I don't think so. But I think that she had a really special time with his sister. I could see them being sister-in-laws together, like they would go shopping and they would have fun and talk on the phone. And I don't know, they just seemed like they could be friends outside of this. So that was probably something that was really special for him to see too.
Yeah, and I think, Gina, that, maybe he was kind of nervous how Gabriella was going to feel about Jen, given that that's kind of his rock, as he's mentioned. But to Jen's point, they definitely hit it off. But again, it comes down to, can Marcus get to where Jen needs him to get to in terms of being open and vulnerable and being able to profess his true feelings for her that clearly need to match Jen's, who is obviously falling for Marcus.
Yeah, and you saw that in his conversation with Scott. It was Scott and Sue, who were like his kind of substitute parents, who are his friends who he met when he was a young ranger, which I thought was, so sweet and kind. I think that it's one of the things that when you look at Marcus, you're like, he's always looking for that, the traditional family, he didn't have that, he needs people he can count on. And, like Jen said, I love the fact that he has that. But you saw that in that conversation with Scott, where he's like, I don't know, there's like this huge canyon between liking someone and loving someone. And I'm trying to figure out how to get to the next level. And it's really hard for him. And, I think with everything that's gone on in his life, as we all know, it has been, it's a difficult road. And, I wonder about his previous relationships and what they were like, and why he thought that this particular avenue was the way to go to try and find someone to marry. I'm intrigued by the decisions and like all of the just the behind the scenes about him, just as a person.
And maybe we'll get some more clarity on that next week when we get to Fantasy Suite episode. But I guess now that we've recapped all this, I want to get down to the nitty-gritty here. And there's a reason why I like to lean on my 2 female co-hosts for questions like this. Is it possible you can be falling for 3 men all at the same time? Because she has now told them, Jen, 3 separate men, one not named Jeremy who went home, that she's falling for all 3 of them. Is that true? And to what level to what level is that possible that you can be falling for 3 men at the same time?
I really don't know. It's so bizarre. I think I've never been in that situation where I've been dating 3 men that seriously at the same time. Right? It's one thing to go on a date here or there, but back in the dating days. But I think that's why she hasn't said "I love you" to anyone, because in this Bachelor universe, there's this whole like level of love thing where there's the falling for you,
varying degrees of love. Yes, of course.
Mm-hmm. So I think she really might be, because she has compartmentalized these relationships. So maybe she is. I don't know, Gina. What do you think?
Well, I mean, and think about these 3 men. They are so like, I don't know that you could have 3 men who are more different from each other.
Also a good point.
And so I could see and understand how she could have feelings and strong feelings for each, because they're like just so separate and apart from each other. Mm-hmm. So I get it on her end. I think it just really comes down to what's going to be the right person for Jen. Who's the right person to kind of like lift her and be her partner in life from here on out. And so that's the decision, who knows? That's her decision. And it's going to be interesting to see.
It reminds me of those books, the Choose Your Own Adventure.
Choose Your Own Adventure. Yes, exactly.
Yes.
Well,
definitely.
Are you following Marcus to the end of the book, or do you want to follow Jonathon to the end of the book? Choose wisely.
Or Devin, which
or Devin. And listen, and now here's the part of the guy perspective. I just asked the female perspective on this. The guy perspective, they meet at freaking Buffalo Wild Wings, wherever the hell they met up, the 4 of them, and be like, so, bro, how was your hometown date? So, bro, how was your hometown date? It's like, if we need any more further proof this is not real world, here we are. These 4 guys being like, well, I love her this much. Well, no, I love her this much. And it's just so, I don't know, if awkward is the word, Jen. You have these 4 guys sitting there dishing about the same girl, which I know we've seen them do in the house throughout the season. But now these relationships have gone to another level after they've brought her to meet their families. And now they're all this like Monday morning quarterbacking it here, just being like, yeah, well, I thought we did this and we had a great time and my relationship with her is as strong as ever. I don't know. I thought the whole thing was weird. And then I think it got into Marcus's head a little bit because he's already so reluctant to be honest with his feelings. And then he said that he's falling for her. And now he's like, well, are all these other guys falling for her? And what is she telling them that's making them feel so confident right now as we're sitting here at Bennigan's having fries and beers?
Bennigan.
So,
wow. A place was called The Dugout.
The Dugout. There we go. I thought it was Applebee's. I didn't know where they were.
This is giving Office Space vibes.
Yeah, there's no question.
The flair.
But
your pieces of flair.
But do you know what I mean? The whole thing is weird. So I guess I can't fault Marcus, who's already kind of having these internal battles, for now all of a sudden having more doubts about his status, if you will, with Jen.
Sure. Yeah, I thought it was very weird. And I can't remember, Gina, you can correct me. Has there been a season where after the hometowns they all get together and hang?
I don't recall.
I don't recall seeing that either. And
I don't ever remember seeing this.
Yeah,
like
it was so weird.
On either show for that matter, Bachelor or Bachelorette. But maybe I'm wrong. Our listeners can say like, oh, you guys, it was then. But I
think they had a sponsorship with TGI Fridays, and that's why they went to TGI Fridays for this.
Maybe. But yeah, for Marcus to sit there and hear that, and also I don't think Devin really wanted to hear it. I think he saw it as an opportunity to kind of brag a little and get in their heads, which
He's done that
Guess.
before in the living room sometimes, and that's what bothered Sam about him is he's always kind of puffing his chest out, Gina, and being like, well, my relationship with her is as good as anybody's and probably better than all of yours. So, eat that. And that's kind of why I think he kind of rubs some guys the wrong way in the house. But I don't know, Gina. I just thought the whole thing was a little weird.
It was interesting. I will say that. And that is, I think, a little bit of Devin's personality where, again, he just wants it to be him so badly that, like, I think sometimes he's not realizing how he's sounding in a situation like this.
Sure.
And it really hit me when Marcus said he felt shame for not being where, everybody else was. And it's like, bro, your relationship is your relationship. Like, you have to just remember it's so separate and apart, from everybody else's. I felt bad a little bit for him.
Well, I just was told by our producer here that it was Chili's that they were at, I think was.
It was not. It was the dugout.
Oh, the dugout. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Easy to get all of those confused.
In Simi Valley, everybody. It is in Simi Valley.
Gina's a regular.
Not
She
too far
recognized
away
it.
from the Bachelor Mansion.
There you go.
No,
How convenient.
I looked.
Do you eat there, Gina?
No, I've never been.
Maybe you should try it out in Brooklyn.
Yeah. Did you get it? What do they have? The bazooka?
Maybe there are a bunch of single guys there. I don't know.
Well, there was 4 single guys there.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Well, they all had a girlfriend.
Yeah, they all had the same girlfriend.
one, though.
Yeah, just
The same one. Yeah.
I mean, this is just everyday life at Outback Steakhouse where they were at. So now, I mean, I thought the rose ceremony was interesting in the sense that we can all agree that Devin and Marcus were going to get 2 of the roses, right? Can we all agree on that?
Yes,
Yeah.
although I was worried Marcus was going to drop out. I thought he was going to maybe let those doubts get to him and bow out before. So I was a little concerned.
Oh, that would have been, that would have been a big surprise there at the end. But I thought, Gina, and, we like to talk about the producing side of this. I thought it would have been a little bit more of a cliffhanger if she had given Devin and then Marcus the first 2 roses, and then it comes down to Jeremy and Jonathon, because I think we can all agree those are probably the 2 most likely that we're going to go home. So then once she picked Jonathon with the second rose, I was like, oh, well, now for sure Jeremy is going home. Did you think that?
Yeah, I mean, there was a point where I think once Jonathan's name was called, Jeremy kind of looked down like, I'm done. Like he knew.
Yeah, right. He knew.
Yeah, that's right.
And, so I think he knew before all of us did. I think that, look, obviously as a producer, you look at the most compelling things, and the most compelling part of this whole back end of this episode was Marcus's doubts and Marcus saying he felt shame for not being where he was and all of that. So I understand why it ended up being, between Jeremy and Marcus at the end. So I get that part. But we'll see where it goes from here. I'm really interested to see how these fantasy suites in the
and the trailer for next week looks great, Jen. I mean, we got 3 guys. Well, here's the thing that I took away from the trailer. All 3 of these guys, well, more so Devin and Jonathon, who were so steadfast in their feelings, and then Marcus was still kind of on the fence, I feel like, was just, saying what he felt, but still wasn't 100% believing himself in his feelings. All 3 of these guys in the trailer for next week saying, well, I don't know if I'm where I need to be with you at this point. And then Jen is saying, is it something that I'm doing wrong? So now there's like a big shadow of doubt, Jen, that's been cast on this fantasy suite episode for next week.
Yeah, I'm wondering if we're getting faked out at all. I hope we are, because if all 3 of these guys feel this way, it makes me feel really bad for Jen, because I hope they get it together quick. She deserves somebody who's going to be all in for her. And I don't know. Hopefully they can have a fun time on these overnights, and they always get these amazing dates. So we'll see what happens.
Gina, how much what will happen in the fantasy suite will determine who is the final 2? That's what I want to know.
I mean,
we're all adults here. We're all adults here.
Jen, that question. But the thing is, a lot of that, as we know, there may be some other stuff that happens, but it really is their, time to talk off camera and not have the pressure of that part of it. So, I mean, it's you have days when you get one-on-one dates, whatever, you have your days, but you still, your time with your lead is so limited. So for them to have just this uninterrupted, several hours of a night to talk and like really get to know each other and whatever, like, I think that, yeah, it does play a big part in it. I mean, there were other times, there were other, moments, in other seasons where like, after the overnights, I mean, I'm remembering Zach. Jen, do you remember Zach, where he came out of it with Rachel and was like, no, I don't know what happened. This is not good. And he knew he was done.
Knew it was done.
Like one of those.
Or I'll take the flip side. What about Joey and Kelsey, who were making breakfast the next day, tickling each other, giggling? I mean, it was you just knew that they had a great night. And I think, Jen, at that point, we knew that it was Kelsey was the person to beat, based on what we saw in the fantasy suite. So that's why, for me, it's going to be interesting to see what it's like that next morning where you can really get a read on things.
Yeah, I mean, it's the first chance to see what, like, in this atmosphere, real life could kind of be like, because like Gina said, it's your first chance really, really alone without cameras. Right. So how are they going to act? Are they different? Are they the same? And the physical stuff too. So we'll see what her thoughts are after all that, and how she decides to use that time, and if she decides to go into the fantasy suite with all three. She may decide before
at the same
end
time
of the night that she doesn't want to.
Not at the same time.
What?
You said take all three into the fantasy suite. No.
Ryan
is a family show, friends. This
no,
is a family show.
She will.
Well, they did say this was going to be a Bachelorette unlike any other.
Ryan.
Gina.
No.
It's not that kind of show.
Thank goodness for that. All right, prediction time. Who goes home next week? I'll start. I think Jonathon goes home next week.
It's going to be Jonathon or Marcus. I think Devin's a lock for the finale.
Well, you can't get off the fence here, Jennifer. Who's going home? Is it Marcus or Jonathon?
I want to see Marcus just to be different. I kind of almost hope if he's not ready, he goes.
And Gina, your thoughts?
I'm going to say Jonathon.
She's going to say Jonathon. We will all find out.
Right. You're probably right.
We will all find out together. It's getting good. We're 7 episodes in, down to the final 3. Fantasy Suites next week. Oh,
also, Men Tell All next week.
Oh, and Men Tell All. And yeah, we have 2 episodes next week. We've got the Fantasy Suites, and then we have the Men Tell All, but we are going to have one gigantic episode of Playing the Field discussing both of these episodes. And Gina, you were there for the Men Tell All taping. It's going to be pretty juicy, isn't it?
It is very juicy. You will definitely, we're going to have a lot to talk about. There's a lot that happens, so stay tuned, everybody.
Ooh, we will end on that juicy cliffhanger, if you will. Don't forget to subscribe to Playing the Field for all of your favorite Bachelor content, Bachelor gossip, and to hear me mention more restaurants like Texas Roadhouse. Be sure to subscribe right here to Playing the Field. For Gina and Jen, I'm Ryan. It's been a lot of fun. Thanks so much for being with us as always. We'll see you next week on Playing the Field.